I'll see who's trailing in momentarily. Let me get this live going. My glasses. Hey, webinar attendees, we are getting our broadcast together, so thank you guys for joining us. All right. Let's see here.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Let me see what this is looking like. All right. Was that Mom?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. And I believe we are we're going live. All right, bear with us, webinar attendees. I'm technologically challenged. I'm trying to set this live up so everybody can see what's cracking, and then we'll get started. I think it's going. Oh, technology is beautiful. Let's see here. Okay. So it looks like we're live on Facebook. Hi, ladies. How are you doing?
Good.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this webinar tonight. Like, this is super exciting. I cannot wait to have this conversation with you guys. So, yeah, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to prolong the hour, as they say. Introduce myself. Zoom land. Webinar people, Facebook land. I'm Chida Rebecca, editor-in-chief of Black Ann Magazine. This is Boss Stories. I have 4 amazing Black female entrepreneurs on this panel tonight. They are all based in San Diego, and they are doing some wonderful things. And so, you know, not to prolong the hour, like I said, I'm going to jump in and let these ladies introduce themselves. I'd love for you guys to hear from them. So after we get the introductions going, we are going to have a nice organic conversation about their experiences being in San Diego as Black female entrepreneurs. And we just gonna give y'all all the tea. So yes. All right, so we got Nikki up first. Hey, Nikki.
Hello.
I
am Nikki Klug, and I have been in San Diego for 12 years now. I'm like many of us. I'm a transplant and have had an interesting time getting grounded and rooted and planted into San Diego community. My husband's in the Navy. We have 4 sons, and I've been an interior designer for about 20 years now. So it's good to be here.
Awesome. Awesome. Next, I got Miss Angel. Hey, girl.
Hi, my name is Angel Mason Broaddus. I'm the president and founder of Puzzle Pieces Marketing. I grew up here in San Diego. My parents moved here when I was probably about 3, so I probably consider myself a native. I was born in Birmingham, Alabama, and I'm happy to be here. I founded the company in 2009. I'll tell you more about my story after all the other ladies get to introduce themselves.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Hey, cousin Cassandra.
Hey. I am Cassandra Shag. I am the founder and owner of Sip Wine and Beer in Escondido. Everyone in San Diego knows me as the wine lady, so.
Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you.
And sis Jasmine, welcome, girl.
Hello, my name is Jasmine Sadler. I've been in San Diego about 8 years, originally from the Detroit area, currently at home with my parents quarantining, and it's been amazing. So my background's in engineering, aerospace engineering, and dance. So I'm known as the dancing rocket scientist around San Diego. And I work with getting kids, Black kids, and girls into engineering.
Awesome. Welcome. All right. So I'm going to jump right in it and we'll just keep the same order that we have going tonight. But if you can, let us know how you got into your profession and what made you bold enough to branch out and become an entrepreneur in San Diego, out of all places.
Right. Right. So, gosh, I have really been designing my whole life with my mother, who is a very creative person. She majored in fashion design in college. And when she had me, she, instead of waiting to pursue her career and, catching that big fish that would give her a shot at fashion design, she took the best paying job that she could, and that was in oil and gas because I grew up in Houston, Texas. So very, you know, uh, dull, I guess, if you will, management position. Her creativity didn't get to come out until the weekends. And so we were weekend warriors. And I've done design since I was a little girl. So, but it wasn't until my youngest son was born that I went back to school and I got a degree in design. It was around the same time as the emergence of HGTV. So it's like, you know what, whether I ever make a dime doing this, I want to, pursue my passion and get out of this house with these four, rambunctious boys. You have boys, so, I want to talk to some adults. So I, little by little, I started gaining clients and had a good business going in Northern California in the San Francisco Bay Area for a few years. And so when I moved down here, I, didn't know anybody, but also was in the middle of the crash of the 2008, 2009 crash. So it was really challenging getting clients again. It took a while. I gave up many times. One time I broke my elbow painting in my own house and was like, okay, I can't rehab and try to grow my business, so I'm just going to quit. And the thought of that was just heartbreaking. So that's what kept me going, just this passion and this desire to design and be creative. And it wasn't until I plugged into an entrepreneur group and kind of found a little bit of a stride that I was able to break through. And so that's why I'm so passionate about women groups, because I know that like together we can go further, as we support one another. Yeah. So we can talk about that later. But yeah, it was through a group of entrepreneurs that I was able to really get my legs and feet under me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What about you, Angel?
Oh, my story. So I'm a Navy veteran, and I initially thought I was going to. I had my career all mapped out for me. So I started my undergrad degree as a chemistry major, was going to go to pharmacy school. And at the time, unfortunately, I had scholarships. So I had budget cuts and lost my scholarships and didn't want to get into student loan debt. So I joined the Navy to help me pay for pharmacy school. Worked for years in the hospital, realized that I could not continue working in the hospital. I'm not the type of person who can't take their work home, and you realize after a while that you can't save everyone. So I realized that this was not the best fit for my personality. Thought that's what I wanted to do starting in 7th grade, and then realized I cannot do this. And so when I left clinical practice, I started teaching for a little while at United Education Institute. I was teaching pharmacy techs, and made, I guess, the fortunate mistake of when I was looking for that particular position, I left my resume online. And about a year and a half into teaching, I got a call from a very large medical device company that wanted me to come in for an interview for a marketing position. And mind you, I had no marketing experience, really didn't even understand what marketing entailed. But I was like, well, what do I have to do? I love my job, so if I don't get it, that's fine. If I get it, then I can figure out what I want to do after that. So I went in for the interview. I sat through the interview, and one of the questions they asked me was, why do you think you'd be a good fit for this position? And I thought to myself, well, I don't know, I don't have any marketing experience. So I turned it back around. I said, why do you think I'd be a good fit for this position? And it was one line in my resume that talked about this white paper that I co-authored. And we rounded at hospitals, because at the time our hospital was completely non-automated in our medication distribution process. So we rounded at these different hospitals to figure out how we want to implement it. And I had my one line in my resume about this white paper. And they called me in because they knew I knew their products. They knew I knew their competitors in the process and the clinical practice. And they took a chance on me. I got the job and I realized that's what I want to do. I want to be in marketing. I still didn't really understand what it meant. I started out as a product manager. I realized what I didn't know and I shadowed people. I was very honest and I asked a lot of questions. And if I didn't have the answers, I told them I don't have the answer. But long story short, I stayed in that position for a while, moved to a couple of other large medical device companies. And at the end of my corporate career, I was working at a very large medical device company called ResMed. And in 2009, I got laid off. And I've been working since I was 15 years old. So I got home, I was crying, tried to beg the HR person not to fire me, because that's what it felt like. It felt like I was being fired. And then I opened up my severance package and I realized, what am I crying about? Let me just go home and take this little check and figure out what I want to do. So I got home, started fixing up my resume, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and said, you know what, let me take some time. Took some time, started meeting with friends of mine that owned businesses, trying to figure out kind of what they do to market themselves, looking at what other opportunities there were in the market at the time, and would meet back up with them a few weeks later, and I'd say, okay, I put some ideas together for you. Since you said you weren't really marketing, here are some ideas. And they'd say, okay, well, what do I owe you for this? And I'm thinking, I was just doing this for my friend, you know, but it put some things in my head. If they thought I could get paid for what's in my head, that maybe somebody else could. And that's when I realized I'm not going back to corporate America. I'm not going to let anybody else be responsible for my future and my career development. So I said, I'm going to start this company and I'm going to give myself, okay, I was very ambitious, 6 months. I'm going to give myself 6 months to see if I can make this work. And that was in 2009. So I founded Puzzle Pieces Marketing in 2009. I have been, this is the longest time I've ever owned a job or stayed in the same job. In 2015, my wife joined and she's been working full time with the company as well. And, you know, we have myself, a team. There's 10 of us and I love what we do. We work with nonprofits because I get to give back to the community and I get to go to work every day and love the people that I work with. Right now I don't get to see them, but that's okay. And I love the work and I love the clients that we work with. So that's my journey in a nutshell. And I'm just thankful to be here and be able to tell my story. So thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you. Cassandra, what about you, girl?
Sandra, yeah.
My story is pretty unconventional. I'm a career drinker. I'm kidding. But
now you can be.
So before I became a full-time entrepreneur, I spent 15, 20 years working with underserved families throughout California. I started, like the first big job I had was working on Native American reservations up and down Central Valley, helping Native American families. And then that went on to helping Native families in San Diego County, working with, you know, runaway teens in Hollywood. So I have a social service background. And then after going to grad school, I got my first corporate job and I gave myself a timeline and a strict exit plan. And basically was like, what am I gonna do to get out of here? And the gist of it was I moved to Escondido, bought a condo, looked around the town and was like, oh, there's wineries popping up. We should have a wine bar here. There's no wine bar here. I'm gonna put a wine bar here. And that is the birth of SIP. So.
Wow.
Wow. Wow.
Yes. I get to drink.
And Cassandra, you're still working, or you went back to the workforce at some point too, right?
Yeah, you know, I dip in and I dip out.
Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
Like, you know, sometimes it's like you just got to cover your bases. Worked in education. I still help entrepreneurs who are trying to get their business off the ground. I do that now. Mentor college students. You know, have a web series called Wineversations. I feel like all of us just have our hands in so many things. So we have plan A, B, C, D, and E. And so with COVID hitting, we can all jump into those plans to survive.
Mm-hmm. I think Jasmine recognized that you were the modest one on the panel. So thank you, Jasmine. Thank you so much.
I know her. So, you know, every time I see her, I'm like, okay, are you working or are you not working? Can I come by or can I come by?
Right.
Yep.
We're gonna touch more into that because that's a part of it too. You know, dipping in and out of the workforce, and you know, you don't always plan for it, but you got to do what you got to do sometimes, especially in America's finest city. So, yes. What about you, Jasmine?
All right. So my background is in aerospace engineering. I'm originally from Michigan, and so graduated here around the 2008 crisis, graduated bachelor's degree, and my first job I got in Indianapolis. I actually got it when I was studying abroad in Hong Kong. I interviewed through Skype, and I didn't get the job then, but when I really, really needed a job financially, they called me, offered me the position in Indianapolis, and basically told me I didn't need to interview again because my interview before was so good. That position just wasn't a good fit, and this is a better fit for me. So that was my first job. And then after 6 months in Indianapolis, I'm like, this isn't gonna work. This job isn't gonna work. This city isn't gonna work. Shout out to Indy for anybody on here, but
Why not
Detroit is like a big metro city, and then Indianapolis is a smaller version with worse weather. So I was just like, this isn't gonna work. But yeah, that was 6 months in, basically renting an apartment and deciding basically that, you know, at the end of my 1 year lease, I'm only gonna do a month to month. I gotta get out of here. Couldn't get out until 2.5 years later. And so the way that I actually got out was I went to a National Society of Black Engineers convention. So I was on the regional board for NSB, and just supporting a national convention, walking around the career fair, making sure all the vendors had water, and just, you know, just helping out, maybe grabbing some free swag stuff, but, you know, just make sure everybody was good. And then I ran into a woman that I met at a conference 3 years prior. And, you know, just catching up with her, asking how she liked her job. She's like, I love it. I'm in San Diego now. Do you want to interview? And I'm like, what? Like, I just wanted to make sure you had water. And basically 4 interviews later, I end up in San Diego. And at that time, right before all of that interviewing started, I knew I wanted to quit my job. And so I ended up saying pretty early on, 6 months in, like, I need to start my own company because this isn't going to work for me. And so I applied to get an MBA. There's this MBA scholarship out to get Black women that were early career, basically everything that I lined up for. I got that offer at the same time as I got the offer for the job in San Diego. Had to decide which one, and ended up taking the job in San Diego, but knew at some point I needed some help starting a business. So worked in San Diego for a few years as an engineer with the company headquartered in San Diego. Not going to mention it because we still have a lot more conversation left. And it basically wasn't a good experience, as most engineering companies are predominantly old white men, and coming in as a young Black woman didn't really fit what they were looking for. So ended up working there. Every 2 years, got a new position. And then my last 2 years there, I ended up pursuing my MBA. And basically one of my first positions there, my boss at the time, you know, I mentioned it, you know, I know this company does tuition reimbursement, I'm considering this. And the boss is like, no, you shouldn't do that. You know, it's actually kind of frowned upon here because, you know, when we want to look for people to work on the higher level projects, we won't consider you because we know that you'll have homework and you got to go to class and things like that. So it's kind of actually a detriment. And, you know, looking at the senior management, which was all white at the time, none of them have MBAs or master's degrees. So, nah, you don't need to do that. So, you know, just bad advice all around, bad kind of experience. But I guess the blessing out of it, I did end up pursuing my MBA while I was there. So working full-time, running my company full-time, and full-time student in the evening. So 2 nights a week at Point Loma Nazarene University, which I love. Yeah, so that's my how that went for education, but I did start my company about 5 years ago. It started off as a math tutoring company, and then went to me presenting in the classroom about being an engineer. Then kind of started working with youth organization leaders. So then that's where the STEAM collaborative came from. STEAM standing for science, technology, engineering, art, and math. So started working with these adult program leaders. And now due to COVID, end up quitting my job full time in November. So still fresh and still trying to just like mentally figure everything out, not stress out, get a routine, work from home. All of that was already happening for me in November. And so when COVID happened, my income went down, but my experience kind of was nicer because a lot of my friends who were working full time can now talk to me during the day in Zoom. And, the ones that I couldn't grab lunch with can now go over their place and grab lunch and different things like that. I'm like, this is the best way to be an entrepreneur, when all your friends can hang out with you. So that was good. But then when the Black Lives Matter stuff happened, that wasn't so good, emotionally and mentally and otherwise. And so now what's come out of it is now I went from being an engineer to speaking about engineering to leading presentations and programs to working with the youth leaders to now being a thought leader on distance learning. So that's what it's been lately. And I've been on presentations a lot and, learning a lot, but then also presenting on behalf of like my experience in distance learning, which I've already been doing. That's what my company was all about, was kind of distance learning before we needed it.
Yeah.
So that's my journey.
That's awesome. Thank you. You guys are amazing. I want to say that we all know that San Diego, America's finest city, is challenging at times for people of color, specifically Blacks. And to be a woman jumping into an entrepreneurial role, it could be extremely challenging. A lot of people, I feel, that want to get into entrepreneurship are concerned about the cost of living and being able to afford to stay here. And we know that pursuing your dreams can be a little costly. And as much as you have things planned out, there will be some bumps in the road. There's just some things you can't plan for with the best plan. So how have you guys navigated, that's a loaded question, but just to get to everybody, how have you navigated being a Black businesswoman entrepreneur in San Diego, in terms of being in either a male-dominated industry, predominantly white industry? How have you had to show up in your spaces in this city and stick with it? Because, we all know we've been in those spaces where we're kind of not noticed. They can be unwelcoming, especially depending on parts of town you live in. So how has that experience been for you, and how have you been able to stay in your companies this long, dealing with the effects of being a Black woman in San Diego? And before you answer that, what I will tell the people watching is that we're seeing your questions. All of our panelists can see your questions. We will get to answering them. We got an hour shot, but I told the panelists if they want to go a little longer, it's up to them, because we're still getting into some stuff and I really want to hear from them. So keep sending your questions in, we can all see them. And then we get to that aspect. If in telling your stories, panelists, if you want to answer one of the questions, if it's directed to you, if you want to tie in one of the questions in your response, one of your responses to my question, then you can do that as well. So yes, I just rolled out a mouthful, but I will start back in the same order and let you talk about that. And if I need to repeat anything, let me know.
So, my experience as being a Black woman in San Diego in the landscape of interior design. So, growing up, I didn't even realize that interior design could be a profession. I assimilated, I connected it to artists, and then thought, I don't want to be starving. I don't want to be a starving artist. So in high school, I was good in math and science. So I actually was in engineering and majored in engineering in college. But it wasn't my thing. I was good at it, but it didn't hold my interest because I am a creative. And when I got married, instead of finishing school, I started having children. And so it wasn't until, they got a little bit older. And like I said before, it's just like I wanted an outlet and I wanted to be an artist. So in one way, I had this safety net because my husband had a very secure job. He's a doctor in the Navy, and my income wasn't necessary. So in that way, I had, the ability to not succeed immediately. But in some ways, like if I had to depend on that income, maybe my fire would have been a little bit stronger to succeed faster. So, you just never know how your story is going to play out. But what my journey was, little by little, I was able to figure out the numbers and cents of, being able to be creative in my artistry. So that kind of answers one of the questions in the Q&A section of, if you're dabbling in something, but you have a full-time job, you're going to keep dabbling unless you just say, that's it, that's enough. You give yourself that deadline of, okay, I need to start making this amount of money by this date and continually increase that until you can replace your income. Because you're never going to, when we're sitting pretty, when we're comfortable, growth doesn't really come out of being comfortable. It comes from being uncomfortable and being in a situation where it's do or die. So it became do or die for me when I had my first employee, and it's that catch-22. It's like, okay, now I got to bring in business to keep this person employed. And that's when I started getting really, really serious. And that person really wasn't even someone I sought after. When I got here in 2008, I met this older woman, oh, she's going to kill me if she's watching this video. She was 10 years older than me at the time, and obviously still is. But she was like, oh my gosh, you're an interior designer? Like, you're my mentor. You're going to be my mentor. And I was like, okay, well, I don't even have a project. Like, my house is my only project at this moment. I don't know what I can share with you. I don't know what I can teach you. But interior design is just so closed fist. Like, nobody would help anybody until social media just in the last 5 or 6 years started opening that up and making it, almost necessary. But whether you were Black or white or whatever, nobody was helping each other. And so when I came here, her latching on to me wanting to continue to bring in business to keep her, because eventually I did hire her to keep her employed, and then bringing interns in. I started really getting serious about my business. The time when I broke my elbow, I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to give this up. And so in order to still stay in it, it needed to make sense. It needed to not, rob Peter to pay Paul, and when I say robbing Peter, my family budget, and my husband looking at me sideways, like, girl, what are you doing? Like it all had to make sense. So I had to start making money. And so someone told me, for interior design, you got to go where the people can spend money on interior design. And that meant North County, as we all know, or Coronado or La Jolla. And so, so I used to go to this caravan every week. It was an hour drive. It started at 8. So that meant I needed to leave my house at 6:30, which meant I needed to get up at 5:45. And I'm not a morning person. But I did that every Wednesday for 2 years. And I did start getting business. And that's when my business started growing. I will add that the landscape became troubling because I'm a chameleon, like, everybody on this panel, we've worked and maneuvered in all kind of spaces, Black, white, whatever. It wasn't an issue. Every time you don't get a job, you wonder, did I not get that job because I was Black? But, I was still getting jobs. So it wasn't until the election, though, the 2016 election, that things really started getting like, like, why am I here? And then also Trayvon Martin and speaking up on my page, like keeping that balance. Most of my clients are other, maybe 20% of my clients are Black. And so trying to walk that line of being authentically me and needing to say, wanting to say what I needed to say, and feeling comfortable and confident about that. And then also wanting people to hire me, wanting to not be offensive or seem like the angry Black woman, or, have people feel any kind of way about me, about hiring me. But the Trayvon Martin thing, that really did it for me. And then the Trump, election and just all the nastiness and now we're coming full circle and people are finally allowing themselves to open their eyes, because I don't think they were blind. They weren't blind. We talked about these things. Our friends listened to us. They saw it on our walls because I was vocal. But now they're allowing themselves to respond, whereas before I don't think they were allowing themselves to respond. Yeah. So it's been a challenging journey. It's been a difficult journey, and even still, my client roster is about the same. I sent out a letter to them to let them know. First, it was my Facebook phone. Now it's my real phone.
Girl, it happens. It's good. You good. We get it.
It's gonna ring like 3 more times, but let me just catch it. Hold on.
Y'all, it's like that. Listen, it's like that.
So now it was to let them know, hey, these conversations may be uncomfortable for you if you've been ignoring them, if you've been avoiding them. As an NKDG client, we care about you, your family to us. So if you want to have these conversations, that I've never made it an issue before, but I'm opening my door. And if you want to have this conversation, I'm here to have this conversation with you, because, be sensitive to your Black friends, employees that you don't have that relationship with, because they're not your answer key, they're cool. But I'm opening my door and saying I'm willing to make bridges in this situation. So yeah, I think we all have to be a part of the solution from our various perspectives and our various ways. No one's going to all do it the same, but it definitely has been a journey here in San Diego as a Black woman, not knowing, again, all the questions that go through your heads and just trying to navigate the waters.
Yeah. Thank you. What about you, Angel?
Well, I grew up in San Diego, so I am very familiar and comfortable being one of very few or the only Black faces in the room. And that's just how I was raised, that you just keep showing up. You make sure you let them know you're not going anywhere. And I think that that's something that's very important for all of us to make sure that we continue to do, is to make our faces and our voices, make sure that they're heard. I'm going to start with a story because it continues to inspire me, and I'm going to try not to cry when I tell it. I already lost. So I sit on the board of several nonprofit organizations here in San Diego County. One of the boards that I sit on is the Marketing Advisory Board for Point Loma Nazarene University. And so I participate in a lot of their panel discussions, and there was one panel discussion in particular that I sat on, and there were 5 panelists, and I was the only one, as usual, that was the only Black face in the room. And so we went through and we all told our stories. My story was very different than most people's because my journey was different. Everybody else on there was in marketing, always wanted to be in marketing, and so their degrees were in marketing. Mine is very different. And very similar thing to this, where people ask questions, and I thought I was going to go on my merry way after the panel discussion. Fast forward to a year later, I was at Point Loma Nazarene again for another marketing convention or event, and just as I was getting ready to leave, I was wrapping up all of my stuff, and I saw this tall, young Black girl who reminded me so much of myself. She had all this big curly hair, was just tall, dark skin, and she just kept walking back and forth. And I kept looking at her, and I thought, gosh, she reminds me so much of myself at that age. And she finally came up to me and just started talking, and I thought, she looks so familiar, but I couldn't tell if it was because she just reminded me of myself or it's because I had met her. And she said, I don't know if you remember me, but give me a second, I'm gonna get through it. She said, but I was at a panel discussion about a year ago, and I saw you there. And I want you to know, when I walked in the room and I saw you on that panel, I realized that I could do it too. And she said, you were an inspiration to me. And I asked her, well, what are you doing now? And she says, I said, how's school now? And she says, well, I've since graduated. I just came back because I saw that your company was gonna be here, and I wanted to come back and tell you thank you. Wow. And I said, so what are you doing? And are you working? She goes, Well, when I walked in that room and I saw you and I realized I can do this, she goes, I started my own marketing company. And I thought, at that age, I would have never been that brave to start my own companies. There are days now where I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And I just realized it's stories like that that make me realize how important it is for us to continue showing up. Because my little brown face inspired another little brown face. And I don't know how many times that's happened, but I hope that it continues to happen because she actually inspired me. And so that's why I keep doing it. That's why I keep showing up. And every time I'm the only brown face in the room, I realize there might be somebody else whose life I'm touching. And it's not always easy, but I still do it. And so much so that in 2017, so I've had the business since 2009. We, like I said, my wife joined in 2015 and we experienced some tremendous growth at that time. We decided that we were going to change our target market and start really focusing on nonprofits. My parents always taught me, you don't live on this earth for free. The price you pay is to give back to your community. And I realized by working with nonprofits and mission-driven businesses, it gives me the opportunity to give back even more. And we actually at that time were working on a campaign with the San Diego Humane Society. And we were talking about how people don't traditionally think of adoption or rescuing animals to bring in a new member of their family, and that we wanted to make it so that people really started considering adoption. And so we had this whole Misfit In campaign because we wanted to put these dogs and these animals in different positions where people would not necessarily consider them. And when we were doing that, I realized that described me, who I am. I walk into the room and people think I don't fit in. And I realized at that time, I need to stop trying to fit in. I don't care if I grew up in San Diego or around a lot of white people, that I tried to fit in. I tried to not stand out or just do everything else the right way, the way they were doing it. And I'm like, I'm never going to fit. I'm always going to be the almost 6-foot black girl in the room with my hair out to here. I need to stop trying to fit in. And so we rebranded. And if you go to our website, you'll see everything looks very different. We're not the traditional marketing company because there's nothing traditional about me when it comes to my colleagues, who I am, or what we do. And that's kind of how I've navigated these waters, is just to make sure that, one, I keep showing up. I keep making sure that people know I'm not going anywhere and I'm not going to look, talk, sound, look like any one of you. You're going to appreciate and accept me for who I am. And I'm going to keep speaking my truth, and I'm going to keep, making sure that my voice is heard. Like I said, it's not always easy because there have been experiences where people have made it known that I probably shouldn't be there. Stories I can tell you where I'm at a professional event and someone will have a problem with their lunch and they'll come ask me questions about their lunch. I don't know anything about your lunch. I don't know anything about your lunch any more than I know where my lunch is. If you figure out what's going on with your lunch, you find mine too. And I don't think that they would ask one of their, white colleagues, where's their lunch? I've had people come up to me and, just grab my hair. And without asking, people I don't know. So I started handling it. I grabbed theirs right back. Their look on their face is like, and I look right back at them like, do you see how inappropriate that is? And I just think that people don't understand all these little microaggressions that we have to deal with in addition to trying to run a business, in addition to, like Nikki said, when we have employees who are relying on us to also put food on the table, their stress. That's stressful in itself. I don't want to have to worry about trying to fit in places where I know I'm not wanted, but that's the nature of the business, I guess. And like Nikki, it's unfortunately hasn't gotten any better. And this political climate, I've realized that even growing up here in San Diego, where I think it's a melting pot, there are some people that were hiding in the shadows that have brought themselves to the light, who are no longer part of my circle. But you have to do what you think is best for your emotional well-being and keep it moving. So that's just how I personally navigate these waters, is I just keep showing up. I'm not going anywhere.
That's real. I'm gonna tell you, Angel, I'm another One of those little brown faces, because I can't remember what year I met you, but I hadn't fully transitioned out of the family business. And I was on the verge of doing it and, you know, tapping into consulting. I was confident that I could do it. And you told me that story. And I've carried your story with me when I'm also questioning at times, like, oh my God, is this, I mean, because you know what you know, but then when people want to pay you for it, that's another thing, you know, because you do what you love. You know, I've done what this stuff, I do it for free, you know, but then when they start asking you for an invoice, you're like, wait.
I know.
And so you're like, we got some dollars to this. So I remember your story and it also impacted me. So keep telling your story. All of you keep telling your story. So thank you for that.
That was beautiful. I actually started opening up like Friday sessions between 9 and 12 where young Black designers could call and ask me whatever questions they wanted to ask me. And I did this for 2 years. And we still do it. We're a little busier now. And I actually go into another Facebook group live on Wednesdays instead of having those open mic calls. But because they don't know, you know, like I didn't see any Black interior designers. So it's good for two reasons: to show up for us, but and like you said, Angel, to show up for them. Like to me, I use it to my advantage. Like they're not going to forget me when I walk in the room.
Yeah.
With what I know, with how I carry myself. I think, you know, in some ways it's an advantage because I still get calls from that caravan and I haven't gone into 3 years now. I still get calls and emails asking me for, you know, to help them with this or with that, and referrals for, you know, this and that for staging and interior design. And so I obviously made an impression if I haven't been there in 3 years and they still call me. So, you know, that was one of your questions, Chida. How do you navigate that? I think we use it to our benefit, you know, when we can.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. You guys are so fabulous. Go ahead. What you got, cousin? Come on, Cassandra.
You know, I live in Escondido and there's about 15 Black folks. We all know each other. And prior, so my parents lived in San Diego and then we moved to Temecula in 1993. So that was before Temecula was Temecula, and there was 7 of us Black folks and we all knew each other. But my parents decided to move there, because there was an opportunity to own a home. And it was an opportunity to introduce us to, I guess you could call it, the burb life. And it had its pros and cons, but moving to Escondido, I saw the same thing, like there's no Black people here, so let me lay roots here, because I feel like we all need to see each other. And then when I opened SIP, I want to say at the time, I was like the only Black business owner like in Escondido that was visible. And it was one of those things where I opened it very low, like off the radar, because I did have this like, okay, what's the city gonna say? You know, are people gonna interview, you know, hell for doing this, or people, you know, you just never know. And so I was very under the radar. And so for the longest time when people would come in, like I wouldn't say anything. Oh, who owns this? I'd be like, somebody, you know, because I just didn't, you know, I didn't know what that was gonna look like. And then I've always, you know, living in Escondido, you just have to kind of observe and figure out the environment. And you start seeing Black folks and you're like, hey, come on in. And, you know, and then people, you know, catch on. They're like, oh, you own this place. And I looked you up on your website and okay, cool. And then I don't know if you guys know about the wine industry, but there's, again, 5 Black people in wine. And, you know, so we all know each other and we're trying to grow, you know, be a part of an industry that's white, male dominated. And so we're trying to make some waves, and I'm a go against the grain type of woman. And I'm the woman that's like, I'll say what I want, I'll do what I want. I'm the risk taker, and I'm like, well, if it fails, whatever. It's just one of those things where you just do it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And so when I was working in corporate America and decided to open a wine bar, I didn't tell a lot of people. It was like, I posted something on Facebook, like, by the way, there's a wine bar open. And it was like, when did you do that? And it's like, you just sit, you focus. And, you know, part of the reason is because if you don't have a circle of people who have the same drive that you have, it can cloud you as an entrepreneur. You know, people could be like, why do you want to do that? Why don't you just work? And and it's like, no, I want to do something different. So, you know, 5 years in, Escondido is a very conservative town, but it's definitely growing to being progressive. And, I used to, not say much when customers would, say snide remarks or, go with the microaggressions or, who owns this or, whatever. But now I don't care. It's very black and white. Like, if you're racist, you can't be here. We're not doing it. There's a lot of people who want to drink wine. If you don't want to, you can go somewhere else. It's funny because I actually had an incident. I know you guys are familiar with Denise Clark. She's the winemaker at Altipiano in Escondido. So she's the only Black winemaker in Southern California. And so she reopened. I posted her letting everyone know she was there because she's been there for quite some time and no one knew. And everyone was sharing her post, and she got 100,000, she got like 700 shares, and over 100,000 people saw her post. And so I'm like, oh, you're going to be crowded on this weekend. And so I get this email from some dude that I don't even know, asking me, basically telling me that it was sad that I was promoting Black businesses and, just all of these things. And so it was that moment where you're like, so is this where you go off? Is this when you do it? And so it was funny. I called my sister and I was hot, and she was like, let your community handle it. Let your community handle it. See what they say. And so I posted it on my page. It was like, what are your thoughts about this? And so it was really good to see that people were like, nope, this isn't his lane. He needs to sit this one out. We're not tolerating this. We're not doing this. And that was the confirmation that I knew I was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And so I think I think at this point, we can't just be quiet about it. If it, it's not about like, well, if I stay quiet, then, I won't mess up my money. Like we'll be fine. We're entrepreneurs. We know how to persevere. We know how to hustle. We know how to grind. We know how to, care for people. So I'm not really concerned about it. So I'm no longer biting my tongue.
And I love that you had posted that person's full email with the name.
That's how you handle that. Listen, he bold enough to send it. He gonna be bold enough to receive this kickback from these.
You don't get all this, girl.
All of it.
So yes. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. What about you, Jasmine?
Yeah, so I remember the question is about my life as a Black woman in San Diego in the business space. And so, like I said, I guess I've had good training for, sexism and racism and ageism because I went to college in engineering. And so that was really good training. I also grew up a tomboy. So, I got to hang with the boys, and my daddy, raised me with my mom. And, and so just like having those experiences too have added to my life. And so I guess my biggest strength is being able to like be quick with it and like, if y'all say something smart, oh yeah, I'm gonna just chop that down right now, not let you think that you can just like let that slide or let it pass. And so working as an engineer, same thing. And so actually it's interesting. I think about it pretty often that while I was still working full time and trying to run my business and build it, at work I had to wear steel toe shoes, pants, safety glasses, earplugs, couldn't wear necklaces, was told one day to take my earrings off just for safety reasons, I couldn't wear anything that I like to wear. And I know Chida loves how I dress.
Girl, I love it. Love it. Yes.
And I do too. But the only thing is I could only dress like that on Saturdays and Sundays. And those were usually like the times that you would see me. It's like, on the weekends when I wasn't in school, when I wasn't working. And it's like, this is actually how I dress or how I would love to dress. But I can't, one, for safety reasons. And then two, working with all these men, and it's like, I have to be cautious about what I wear, what's covered that day, what's not covered. And this is all before I even have breakfast, I have to think about every day what to wear. And so one day, one of my friends, Jean Wong with the League of Extraordinary Scientists and Engineers, like we've been on the Comic-Con panel for a couple of years now. and we like to do things really early in the morning, especially while I was working. So we would meet at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and like she would record like a little promo video for Comic-Con or something like that. And so one morning we met, and I was like dressed in all costume, just like cosplayed up. I still had my locks, and they were like in Bantu knots, all this stuff. And then so we took did our photo shooting from the Air and Space Museum. I'll post the pictures shortly. But yeah, so we did all of that. And then while we're about to split up, I'm like, yeah, now I have to take off my real clothes and go put on the costume, and that was there. I was like, yeah, I got to figure something out real soon, because, I'm literally like in a full like superhero, Bantu knot woman, Black woman, Afrocentric. And then now I have to take all of this off, put my hair in a bun or in a ponytail, take off these earrings, put on some pants, put on steel toe shoes, put on earplugs, safety glasses. And so that was my life. And so now I get to live for myself. I get to dress how I want to every day. And so, and actually, I think Angela kind of mentioned it before, it's more of like a asset, and it has grown my business a lot better, because if I were an old white male aerospace engineer, that's, a lot of people have still never met an aerospace engineer, but that's what you expect one to look like. But, when people find out that I'm one, especially a lot of teachers and a lot of people with youth organizations, they would say, can you just come to my classroom and you can stand in the corner and I can say she's a rocket scientist and you can leave. And so, just changing what that looks like for people. And then some of my mentees are on here right now, and they know, I tell them all the time, like, especially when they were in college, you have to finish. Like at this point, this isn't about you anymore. So like, if you don't want to be an engineer, I don't care. Like, you're finishing your engineering program, because the reason that I finished mine was so that I could tell you, you could finish yours. And if you don't finish, then you can't tell anybody else what they can, that they should be an engineer. Oh yeah, you can, I started, but you should go ahead and do it. You can do it. Like, no. And so it's not about you anymore. You have to finish. So being, myself as a business owner, it's been amazing. Way more amazing than the past 10 years as a career engineer.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Wait,
hold on.
What about you?
Yeah.
Who?
Not gonna fly under the radar. No, we're not doing that. Nope.
Interviewer.
No, sorry.
Okay, cousin, what you want to know, girl? What you want to know?
I mean, starting a magazine is not. It's not like, you just, how does that happen? How do you start a magazine?
Wow. So I will tell you, growing up, I was forced to come to the newspaper office every day after school. I want to preface this by saying, when my mother first came to San Diego, she said her dream job was to be a meter maid, which to this day, I don't even understand how I don't get it, because she was such a visionary. So my parents purchased a newspaper in 1987 after the owner had been murdered, tragically. Yeah.
Which newspaper?
The Voice and Viewpoint, the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint newspaper, which is now 60 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And so they purchased it. They knew nothing about newspapers at all, like nothing. There was a whole bunch of drama tied to it during the purchase, but I just remember being up there every day after school. And fast forward, learned how to do photography. We're developing pictures in the darkroom, answering phones, learning how to type, all this stuff. But I hated the industry. Like, I wanted to get as far away from it as possible. And I think it wasn't until I started running one of their other businesses, which at the time my parents started the first Black chamber here in San Diego. We had it for like 20 years before other entities popped up. And I was the executive director of that. And I really started understanding the significance of Black media and the role that it plays in storytelling. Just people were always coming to the office having issues and wanting their news reported. My mother passed in 2009, and then I had to come back and fill her role at the newspaper with my dad. I knew nothing about being a managing editor. I literally had to Google my job description, you guys. Like, all the time I had spent there, I really didn't know what she did. Like, I really didn't care to know. I just knew I didn't want to be there. And I remember just coming back, and my dad was still kind of grieving and stuff. And this is, you know, when she passed, it was around the time of right after 2008, you know, crash and everything. So the paper wasn't doing well. So I had this task of rebranding and rebuilding a 50-something-year-old newspaper that I didn't even know what my job description was. So I just started falling in love with it, wanting to continue her legacy. And it was almost like when I sat in that role, it's like her spirit filled me. Like I understood, I got to see through her eyes. I understood the importance of storytelling and being a voice for somebody. And the way the magazine came about, newspaper storytelling is very different than magazine storytelling, very different. You have to stick to the facts, can't be too lengthy or whatnot. And with magazines, I've always collected them. Always just grab the pages. I like ink, I like paper. I literally have hundreds of magazines in my storage to this day, just stacked up. But I loved how you could tell a story on the pages, and the photos can kind of interconnect, and the design, and I just thought it was beautiful. And I just felt like in San Diego, you know, we had the newspaper, but I really wanted to tap into that lifestyle experience. So I saw San Diego Magazine. I never saw us in that magazine or any of the other magazines for that matter. And it bothered me because I'm like, there's events here. This is a great city, but I never feel like they're marketing to us, you know, these concerts, these festivals. You know, they would never come to the newspaper. And while the newspaper had to stay in that newsy format, I wanted to bring out the lifestyle aspect of it. And so at the time, I was the youngest Black newspaper publisher in the country before I left the business, and decided to make the exit and step out. And I did, and it's been difficult. From just, you know, sometimes people just kind of see you as that person writing stories. They really don't know what you put into it or the passion behind it. But I think now in this climate, people are starting to understand the significance of Black media and what we've always been doing. And the Black press is 193 years old, you know, and standing on the shoulders of Ida B. Wells is an honor. So I just love storytelling. I think it's fun. I wish I had more hands to type. There's so many stories. I think I've hit all of you up about a story I wanted to, because I'm inspired by people. So that's how I got into the magazine, and it just turned 2, and we're rolling out a big announcement this week, a partnership that just came about in the last month. But yes, cousin, that's how I got in it, cousin. Call me on it. Thank you.
Thanks for the article you wrote on me.
Right? I think did we finish that, Jasmine?
Finished it. We never published it though.
That's what it was. Yeah, it's coming. It's coming, girl. It's coming. So, you know, being a one-man show at times, having people volunteer, not having enough money to bring your vision to fruition, like all that stuff. Some days being like, I'm good. Like, God, you picked the wrong one. I don't want to play anymore. I'm good. And he's like, yeah, no. This is what you're doing with your life. So yeah, that's how that happened. So
at the point you want to grow, and someone asked about, like, do any of us work on having investors as part of our plan to start our, like, for business, and do you recommend that?
And I wanted to add, I saw that, I wanted to add too, in talking about investors, as you talk about that, what your big money tips are from your experiences as an entrepreneur too. What would you offer to people? Whatever spectrum, wherever that falls on the spectrum of finances and being an entrepreneur.
I think, you know, a lot of, I think both the statistics, like, we're grossly underfunded when it comes to opening a business as Black women. And so for me, when I got my first big job in the corporate arena, like, that was my ticket out. And so I pretty much self-funded SIP. And so, you know, it was like, well, if you're not going to give me money, then I'll just save up my own money and do it. And then just being savvy in the process. And then you work up social proof, and then you build a community of people who support you, and then people might want a piece of it. And, you know, that's okay, but there has to be a value add to that. And so, like, I have an investor, but I'm majority owner. I will always be majority owner. And I had to have one of those conversations because it just gets to a part where you're so in the weeds that you can't see the growth that needs to happen. And so for me, I needed someone that was the opposite of me in order to reach a new level of growth. And to be quite honest, someone who was going to be real with the money, like with the dollars, like lift the hood of the business and just be like, this is what you need to do. And if you don't do it, then you won't be in business for long. And so you're like, okay, well, I guess I have to do that. And it's hard when you're an entrepreneur because you don't want to let go.
Mm-hmm.
You want to control things. You don't want people to tell you. I mean, if you guys watch those TV shows and people are crying, like, don't jack up my stuff. It's like, you build this thing and you build something and it's your baby. And so you're like, it's hard, but it's a part of the growth process. And, at some point you just have to realize you don't know it all. And the only thing that I do know is that my passion is for people and showing people new things and opening them up to different experiences. And, it always makes me smile when, we would have events and it'd be filled with Black folks, and, people are walking by like, what they doing in there, And so that's what makes me happy. And,
Especially your birthday events.
Oof, yeah, I miss those. They're good. But yeah, I think, people, unfortunately, we're in a position where we have to self-fund and take the risk on our own, but we have to also be wise enough to have a good circle of people and advisors to help us know when to take the next level, the next step.
Yeah. That's
I'm
good.
just coming pretty quickly on that one too. I'm all self-funded, and I think one of the reasons because I was working as an engineer, and so making decent enough money to kind of do some side things. But at the time, I was doing a lot of stuff for free, and that was how I formed my network of people, and so volunteering, that kind of thing. And so it's like, but I kept everything really small initially. And it's still fairly small. I mean, I say that my business is like, it grows organically. So I saw Brandon ask about growth and using social media for growth and things like that. And it's like, I still to this day haven't really done a full like marketing execution for my company at all. And that way, I know everybody who I work with, or they know me through like one degree of separation. And so I've liked it that way. I'm actually in an accelerator program now. And so I might have to let that go soon. But then like Sandra's saying, like it's my baby. And so, still have to navigate that. Being the owner of it, I get to determine where it goes and where it doesn't go. But yeah, all self-funded. And then even now it's interesting, but I did shout out Corey Morrison, who I think a lot of you all know. He's also on here. He's my financial advisor and saved my life, honestly. And so, Corey's, I'm his biggest fan. But, it came to the point, years into working as an engineer, I'm like, man, this is supposed to be the lucrative career. You go to school to be an engineer so you can make all this money. And I'm like, I don't have anything in savings. And so, I talked to Corey. I was like, I'm trying to quit this job. I'm trying to do my business. I'm trying to go to school. How can we navigate all of these big financial life decisions and plan for me to quit? Because at the time I was ready to quit. And I'm like, he's like, okay, so don't quit now. Let's figure this out. And I'm like, okay, so what do I need to do if I was going to quit in 3 months? And then what do I need to do if I was going to quit in 3 years? He was like, let's try to lean more to the 3-year mark. And that's about the amount of time that it took for me to get everything at a decent place. And even like part of it is that, he took control of some of my finances at some point, to the point where, my bank account started looking a bit funny, especially during COVID. And I'm like, Corey, I don't know. What are we going to do? He's like, plan for this. We planned for this. This was the plan. And so the plan doesn't have to change just because COVID changed. So,
That's good. That's good.
It's been how I've been doing things so far. But I guess also lately during this virtual space, I've been joining a whole lot of awesome group. So Women Give San Diego's on here, and they do a lot of things with grant makers. So actually funding businesses and funding nonprofits.
I see Linda's comment on there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so yeah, working with Connect All at the Jacobs Center at Business Accelerator. And so just kind of like figuring out what to do with all of this. And somebody also mentioned, like, do you need to go to school to get an education in business? And for me, it was a bigger opportunity to meet my professors and the hookups and the connections that they gave me. Like, I had my first big company event in my professor's conference room, you know, and so things like that were invaluable. And so all of that, and I'm trying to answer as many things as I can at the same time.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, just a lot of good organizations that can help with funding and help with education, but don't shy away from it if that's what you want to do.
I think too, sometimes people go and get degrees and they feel like that degree is supposed to shape their entrepreneurial experience. I highly recommend, like when I got into publishing, a lot of you know, I just finished my degree last year. So I did a lot of on-the-job training, if you will, and there were some things I experienced in school that, I mean, working in the family business that they didn't teach me in school. Google became my best friend, you know, watching videos and different things, and sometimes it was just hands-on. So, I mean, if you want to be an entrepreneur, we have so many tools and resources now that can help equip people to be business owners that are outside of actually getting a degree in that field. But what I did love about going back to school right now at this age was that I had real life experience to couple with the classroom. And so that was the difference. When I got in the classroom, I knew what they were talking about, you know, and it enhanced my learning the more. So there were tools I could literally take from college and say, now I can apply this to my business, versus going into the major cold and expecting them to teach me. There was so much that I gained having real life experience and then going to school. So if I could do it over again, I probably would have waited to go into college because I would have been able to grasp more early on in terms of what they were teaching and how to marry real world in the school. So yeah. So Nikki, what would be your money tip or thing you would pass on that you've experienced while in business?
To really plan to reinvest. I mean, at some point you do need to draw a salary, but so much of it is just growing. And, you know, whether it's, you know, making sure you're getting an ROI on the money that you do spend. So measuring and tracking everything. The point about, you know, using social media, I can tell you that I did, you know, Facebook Lives for 2 years straight. And whether it was 1 viewer or 10 viewers, I was consistent about that. And so that put me in a position to be cast for a nationwide commercial last year, you know, and you never know who's watching, you know, so showing my work, showing what I could do, having the consistency, practicing talking to the camera, you know. I watch, it's so silly, but I watch Trevor Noah, and it's like when you have a guest, you know, and you were all by Zoom, you've got to look at the camera and not down at the people at the bottom of the screen, you know.
Yeah.
Little things like that, and just being able to speak, you know, on the ready and have your 3 points and go live on Facebook and stick to your points, that really prepared me for this amazing opportunity that, you know, once I was in the room with, you know, a 20 camera, you know, crew filming this commercial all day, that I was ready. I was prepared, but who knew that that's what, you know, 2 years of 2 viewers watching me on Facebook Live was going to lead up to. But all that to say is staying faithful, you know, staying faithful to what you know you're supposed to be doing, tracking, making sure that you're giving your all and doing your best, and you will succeed. They're just, I don't know, maybe it's hokey, but it's like we do our part and then God's going to do the rest. So
I believe that. Listen, yeah, believe it. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, like Jasmine, I was, you know, I'm completely self-funded as well. I'm in an interesting situation though, because all my work is service-based, so I didn't have a lot of overhead when I started the business. Again, I was in a very fortunate situation because I was laid off and I had a very nice severance package, so I had a buffer that if if it didn't work, I could go, live off of my severance and then have some time to find a job to replace that salary. And then when I started the business, it was in 2009. So I was right in that time of the recession. So there were a lot of layoffs. So that left opportunity for me as a consultant to come in. And so I almost immediately got a really large contract with a medical device company in that 6-month time frame that I gave myself, and then just kept, again, showing up and kept working it. One of the things that I can say, being self-funded though, is I was very cautious about how I spent my money because I wasn't sure how far it was going to stretch. And so I was very resourceful. I looked at a lot of free resources. Again, didn't know anything about being an entrepreneur or business owner. So I took free classes. I went to SCORE, did mentorship through SCORE, looked at different tools that I could use that were free. I could tell you accounting tools. I could tell you project management tools. I can tell you, tools that are free because I tried them all. I wanted to make sure that I could figure out how to navigate this without having to spend a lot of money. So I became very resourceful. And then again, part of what we always are doing is looking at how to increase our efficiencies. Like I said, I mentioned earlier, my wife is my business partner. So she does a lot of looking at how we can reduce even our overhead that we have now, making sure that we're doing things as efficiently as possible so that we're not just spending money because we have it, because we are in a very fortunate situation where we didn't have to get investors to fund us, but we still had to be very cautious about how we spent our money. So that's what we're constantly doing, is figuring out if there are ways that we can reduce our overhead, or are there ways that we can be looking at how we become more efficient, and then just being very smart in how we are spending money. There's a question about marketing and social media. Of course, being a marketing company, we use a lot of social media. What's interesting though is we don't do a lot of what we would consider traditional marketing. We do use social media because it is something that is very low cost way to, depending on how you use it, of course, because you can spend a lot of money in social, to reach your target audience. So we do a lot of work in social media, but it's all very organic. We don't do a lot of ads. We are about nurturing relationships, and that's one of the easiest way to do that is by interacting with your audience and making sure that you're doing so in an authentic way. And so if you go to our social, you'll see that it's not always about selling our product or our service. It's about making sure that people get to know us and who we are, because we don't have a salesperson on our team. I am the salesperson. So I know that when people are making a decision on how they want to spend their money, they want to know who they're working with. So we make sure that our social voice is very much who we are. It's very personal, and we use it very strategically. We're not selling products. We are making sure that we're developing and nurturing relationships, and that's how we use our social.
I love it. That's good stuff. That's cool.
The one thing, highlight another point that Angel made, and about transfer of wealth happens in times like these, so a lot of us had this turning point or this starting point around 2008, 2009. I've listened, to all of our stories tonight. And so this time right now is just such a opportunity rich season to where finding solutions. How can you help people? How can you serve them? What are the solutions that we need right now in this moment? That's when leaders are born and when companies are made or broken. So you'll see a lot of things close down, whether it's retail. Even some online companies are suffering right now because they couldn't, pivot fast enough. And so there are going to be gaps. Like right now, there's Charlie. I just heard Charlie Company. It was a jewelry company, right? I'm talking
Charming
about?
Charlie.
Yes.
Yeah.
They closed. And so someone that's in my mastermind, I know, right? Somebody that's in my mastermind though, in a company based out of Atlanta, Sharice Jones, Sassy Jones. Have you heard of her? So it's like she's poised. She's grown her business. She employs like 20 people. She announced this publicly. Just did $10 million this last month.
Wow.
But she's in position to take over that space if she so desires. We're all excited for her, for that potential, for that possibility. But this is a rich season. So people that are thinking about entrepreneurship, like really take the time to dig in and look for grants, look for opportunities. I mean, the majority, they're looking for ways to to feel better about their lack of involvement before. And so, we have more allies and more accomplices than we've ever had before. So I would just say dig in and find that opportunity that, where you can serve or fit in to help, people through these times.
Yeah, that's great advice. No, I appreciate that. I do want to, gosh, I could talk to you guys forever. Had this been an in-person event, the plan was to be at Cousin Cassandra's spot, sipping, okay, and chatting and eating, and then we could have stayed there all night until 2 a.m, because she know how to turn up. But this was needed now. People are transitioning during COVID, so we thought that your voices were necessary. But I do want to ask about the love life aspect of being a Black female entrepreneur in San Diego. Cassandra, I don't have any comments about this. Not one. So if you were thinking about asking me, I have nothing to say at all. I'm single. I'm single. Single. Yes.
It is hard out here for a strong Black woman. No, it's not hard. You know what? I think as entrepreneurs, we're all very tough, right? Like, hard exterior, like always just, you gotta be tough out there. You gotta put people in place when they wanna, try to play you, in terms of a business. And so I think for me, that equates to maybe I am that way at home, but I'm really not. I'm really sweet and crazy. No. But I mean, dating has had its challenges, but I haven't really been focused on it. I've been focused on growing the business, and when it's my time, it'll happen, and I'm cool with that. But until then, I just think it's cool to hang out. It's cool to meet people who have the same energy. It's cool to meet successful people. But it's a struggle, especially in San Diego.
Girl.
Weren't you supposed to be the master matchmaker?
Who?
You.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, I mean, I did meet a little tenderoni at one of your events. He was so cute. He was cute.
I mean, I bring everybody together. That's all I can do after that. I bring everybody together and I have good wine. Which y'all do after that is on you. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, and now with COVID, you're like, you got COVID? Where can I
Let me test you.
The parking lot of Starbucks.
Corey, I said tenderoni, you heard me. That's it with me. He was younger than me, Corey. That's why I said that he was a baby. I would have messed up his whole life. I didn't even.
Yeah.
I just had to walk out. So yeah, so two of you were married, and the rest of us are single. So how is it navigating business and being married and or single?
Well, my situation is very interesting. I had the business before, then my wife joined in 2015 full time. So we work together. We're married. We're business partners. This coronavirus hasn't changed much. We have an office. We were going into the office before all of this only a few days a week because our team works from home a lot of the time. We work from home a lot of the time. And so the only thing that's really changed for us is that we're not going to all of the events that we were going to before. And a lot of people don't know this about me, but I'm very shy. So I'm not minding. Yeah. See, I just fill in all the tea. I am very shy, and I do not like, I really don't like people in general, just talking to people. So I'm navigating this. It works well for us. We do have our own responsibilities, so that's something that we have done that works really well. I'm the president, and she's a vice president, but we split up the roles and responsibilities. I am sales, she's operations, and then as far as our service lines, I do everything, marketing strategies, public relations, event marketing, and graphic design and branding. So I manage those teams and those projects and those tasks. And then she does everything digital, so website design and development, search engine optimization, and social media. She manages that side of the business and those teams. And so it allows us to not step on each other's toes. She is the owner of those. We obviously consult with each other just like we do our team. But she's ultimately the decision maker when it comes to those line of services. But we'll consult with each other on
Getting those coins.
That's my live studio audience as well. So she's here supporting me. She's even logged in, but she had to give her input.
I have to. I love seeing all these beautiful black women.
You better support, girl. You better be in the background cheering us on.
She always says we know how to play each other's tambourine, so she's playing the tambourine today.
Hey.
Oh my God.
I love it. That was classic. I love it.
So it's working out well.
Good. And that's, and I grew up watching my parents work together in their offices across the hall. So that was normal for me. But then when I was married, I recognized that wasn't normal for everybody. And so you have situations where your spouse expects you to leave the work at home. And I want to come home and talk about the next big venture. Like, yo, how we going to take over the world, Pinky? And I was like, we home. So that was interesting. So Nikki, how is it for you? You guys are in two different industries altogether. How does that work?
Right. It's definitely of the mindset of happy wife, happy life. So, he's grinned and bared all my shenanigans of, again, robbing Peter to pay Paul, trying to make my business get off the ground and get some feet under itself. When the point came that my business was self-sufficient, we could pay all our bills, we weren't very profitable, but at least we weren't dipping into family savings anymore. He saw, okay, this can work. Before he was just like holding on, like, girl, come on now. So it's exciting though, because there was a transition where I went from, being 100% artist to now 100% business owner. And whether it's interior design or construction or real estate or, flipping and holding, we have a few different ideas that we want to, expand on. And so, the fact of releasing the design part to my team, of course, everything has my fingerprint. I've trained them, it has my approval, but going from having to do the design to now overseeing and being really the CEO and spearheading our growth and our vision has really been exciting. And he's on board with that now. He's watched me and seen me and understands that, you can trade time for dollars, but once you stop working, that's it, no more dollars. And so seeing the vision, it's been exciting to have some of my transference of that entrepreneur spirit to him, and buying into the whole big family empire vision for, 10, 20 years down the road.
I love it. That's awesome. What about you, Jasmine?
Just was like, yeah, I mean, it's been whack, I guess, probably the best word. To find somebody who's like on a similar wavelength, or, even just mindset or credentialed, or, just similar, let's just say that, similar enough, and that will pursue or court has been non-existent really for me. And so it's like, it'll be people pursuing that are like, you're who I want to be with, and I'm like, you're not who I want to be with. Or it'll be people that that I'm like, okay, this could probably be, a good match or something like that. We kind of have similar objectives and goals and history and LinkedIn profile. And then it ends where it's just like, all right, so no text, no call, no show. Like, okay, yeah, no, that's not gonna work. So yeah, it's just been whack. And so I've asked my guy friends and stuff, are just like, do you think I'm intimidating? And they're like, no, they're just, and I've been told by I guess, want to be pursuer, but it was just like, I'm not ready to handle you at the level I'm at right now. And so I need to grow a whole lot more to be able to handle you. And I'm not willing to do that. It's kind of like basically what they told me. I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready for you right now. I'm like, thank you.
But that's, you got to respect that. That's because it could have been worse. I appreciate that on your behalf. Yeah. Thank you, sir, whoever you are. Yeah. Well, it sounds like everybody has some, there's a common thread with us single ladies, and the married ladies are happy. So it's encouraging for us. Thank you for that.
We're all happy, I think.
Yeah, no, not to say that we're not happy. Thank you, Jasmine. Let me rephrase that. We are happy. I'm happy. We're happy. But I'm glad that the married people are happy. I think us single people have hit some bumps and we're just like, okay. Like, I know for me, I'm just like, it happens when it happens. I'm not pursuing it. I'm not chasing it. There's a lot of stuff. I just got good and free from being on 24-hour mommy duty. So I'm enjoying being by myself, which is great. In the bed by myself, in the room by myself. It's wonderful. Some things you just can't pay for. So,
And I think the only thing I like is, I guess I'm hopeful about it is, one, I have the desire for marriage and for children. So God gave me that desire. So it's like, all right, that's taken care of. But then part of it too is like, if I would have met, my husband maybe years ago, while I was still working full time, like working, school, company full time, like that was a weird Jasmine back then. Like I was a very busy, very occupied person. And so now I'm still, busy and doing, working, but I'm not nearly as busy and occupied as I used to be. And so, so I just look forward to, future years down the road where the things that God has shown me that I'll be doing then. And I'm like, okay, well, I want a partner that can match that, and not one that would have matched me back then.
yeah, that's legit. No, that's a good point. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Right?
It's just a time and a place for everything. And we want things, and it's not necessarily the perfect time or the right time. And so just to trust that, our desires, if we were given those desires, they, like you said, Jasmine, they will be fulfilled. So
It will. And I think God allows us to see those things down the road so we can be encouraged that he knows what he's put in us, and we'll get there when it's time to get there, So I definitely agree with both of you. What I want to ask you guys to do is, while the others are talking, for you to put your information in the chat so everybody can see it. But I would love for you to leave our viewers with some closing Black Girl Magic words of wisdom, and where they can find you, even though you'll be typing it in the chat. But just kind of wrap us out, and because I told you I'm gonna try to be mindful of the time. I'm gonna try. That's what I'm doing. So and I think in most cases, and thank you guys for helping with the questions, we were able to touch on a lot of the things that people were asking. If you guys still have questions, you can post them, or the ladies will leave their contact information, social media, website, all that kind of stuff, and you can actually reach out to them as well. But yeah, who would like to kick off our closing comments?
I can start.
Okay.
So I had mentioned earlier that I sit on the boards for several nonprofit organizations, and I'm the only African-American person on all of them. The thing that I have realized is that I can't be everything to everybody, especially in this time. I don't know how many people have reached out to me wanting my input, wanting my feedback. And although I appreciate that now their eyes are a little bit more open, I'm just one voice and I'm emotionally exhausted. And I had to have this conversation on one of my boards today where I said, I'm just one voice and we need some additional voices of people that look like me. Because I don't have all the answers. I don't pretend to have all the answers, but I'm tired. I'm tired and I am not going to continue doing it. So you learn how to say no when there's too much, because especially with, me being African-American, a veteran, a member of the LGBTQ community, female, when they're looking for diversity, they're like, we got a one-stop shop with Angels. So I can't, my plate is full.
You it for everything.
I know, so if we ask Angel, then we cover all our bases. And, there are times where I'm like, I can't do this. I can't, my plate is full. So I think the words of wisdom that I have is, one, recognize our strength, but also when we need to say no. I need to get better at, but I'm going to be doing my part to set the example that we can't be everything to everybody.
That's real. And it's okay to say no, because this is a look, I made a video. I said, if you would have told me that the world was gonna wake up in 2020, you got folks emailing, apologizing for their ancestors. This is overwhelming. I got white folks talking to me that would have never I was north of the 8 back in January. Them jokers was not talking to me. Okay. Now it's like, hey, hi. I'm like, whoa, they're talking to me. Wait a minute, you see me? So
right, I'm visible.
I've been here, you know. I literally have left La Jolla and Rancho Santa Fe because I was like, I can't deal with this. I'm uncomfortable, like, you know, and trying to immerse myself in those spaces to break that uncomfortable feeling. But now that people are friendlier, it makes you want to retreat a bit, because I'm used to non-Black people not speaking to me. Unfortunately, I can handle that. It's the speaking, and I'm like, oh, what do I do?
and Black people not speaking. Also used to that.
Well, it depends on, San Diego is different for that. If they're from the South, they gonna speak. I think, they're from out of town, they usually talk. Which I can deal with that too, because I'm gonna make you speak. Hi, you know. So yeah, that was my 2 cents. Go ahead, y'all. Go ahead.
I'll go. I think that that everything is mindset. And so as you grow in your business and you grow as a person in entrepreneurship, what you think is what you become. And so whether it's, you know, staying positive and staying focused on what your goals are, what your desires are, how you see your legacy growing, that's what you're going to get to, like those deep burning desires. And if you don't intentionally create something, if you don't have something that you're pushing forward to, you're going to stay stagnant, and then you're going to fall off. Like, there is no stagnant, right? It's either, you know, moving forward or declining. And so we're doing this thing with my family, and I'm glad we started before COVID, because it's really helped us stay connected with all our family members across the country, where we're doing a book club with Think and Grow Rich. And there's a version with Napoleon Hill, the original author, but then there's also a version with a very impressive African-American man that took on that charge and wrote Think and Grow Rich for the African-American. And so we meet every Sunday, and it's been such a blessing to watch our young teens, like my 4 sons and 2 nephews in Texas, and then a niece in Atlanta, to participate with us and to see their minds growing and expanding. And so really, like, that's been my focus. Like, what I'm focusing on is what I will achieve. What I'm pushing towards and meditating on daily, that's what will happen. So to, just to see the life we've created, and knowing that this started 25 years ago with our vision. And that's what I would leave people with, is just focus on what you want and not necessarily what you don't want. Be the solution in however way you're made, however way you're fashioned, you know, your personality, your likes and dislikes. Let's be the solution that way. You know, don't focus on what other people should be doing. That's one thing I so get frustrated with, is when the Black community says, well, first we need to do this, or first we need to do that, or if we would all, you know, it's like, yeah, we're diaspora. Like, we're not just singular minded. You know, we can have unity without having uniformity. And so just taking what you're passionate about, what you're, you know, how you're crafted and shaped and formed, and work on that angle. You know, grab a few of your friends, work together towards that cause. Yeah. So for me, that was a letter writing campaign. It was seeing my white friends that were like, okay, how can we be part of the solution? I'm like, really? Are you serious? Like, you really, really for real? Because if you are, I'm gonna put you to work. Mm-hmm, so we created this letter writing campaign, and spent like 10 days, like actively working, researching, writing these form letters, and reaching out to our friends and family, and like making demands. You know, this aid can't wait. This is what needs to happen. It needs to happen now. And so we have, you know, white people, allies, and some accomplices that are serious about the changes that need to happen. So you know, I could have sat in what took you so long, or or
Yeah.
why now, or how long this gonna last. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we can all sit in a very negative space, and we deserve. I mean, we have the right to do that. But for me, for to move forward, it was like about creating a solution. And so, if you're serious about working together, okay, come on, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Thank you.
So I will take Dr. Lawana Richmond's question in the Q&A, and I'm gonna just reword it a little bit. Um, she said, for the people who love me, what is something that I wish they knew about how to better support me? And so I said to check on your strong friend. Um, at first, that was just an awesome question. I was like, you can tell she's a doctor because that's a very like dissertation question. But that was awesome. And but yeah, just check on your strong friend. Like, you know, a lot of people see my social media or things like that. You know, social media is marketing to me. You know, it's business. It's my job. You know, to keep people engaged and things like that, and so that I'm the person that they think of when they think of, you know, we need somebody in STEAM, we need somebody in education, we need a thought leader, we need somebody that students can relate to. You know, that's to me what I use social media for. In addition to kind of just like bookmarking stuff that I'm interested in. So, but yeah, but that's not a representation of my real life, and so check on me, and you know, call me and hang out with me and things like that. And you know, a lot of people think that I'm always super swamped, but I'm not always super swamped, especially now that I'm working for myself. And so, especially during COVID, especially now that school is out, you know, I was tutoring a student in math, and now that's slowed down. Um, so yeah, it's just like, yeah, check on us. You know, I, I would say we are not okay, but you know, sometimes we are, but then sometimes we aren't. And you know, the first time that I got, I guess, kind of high anxiety during COVID was when one of my business friends reached out to me and said, you know, what are you doing right now? Like, this is your time to strike. You know, this is all about STEAM and education and engineering and digital and online. Like, this is all you. So what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm trying to go to sleep. Like, you know, or just, you know, just something like I'm not really um
I need a nap. I need a break.
yeah, I'm not really
Yeah.
trying
People do,
to
right?
it or
Take
reinvent
a nap.
myself or do this whole new introduction or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
read people's face and try to get them to spend money when they're losing their jobs. You know, like trying to be personal and empathetic and still trying to figure out what I want to do. But yeah, not trying to pivot my company too far in a different direction. You know, they wanted me to start selling things, t-shirts, and you know, just you know, this is what an entrepreneur does. You know, you just got to keep the hustle going. And I'm like, no, I don't. Like this, I
That's
don't.
real.
So, but yeah, that you know, people see something or see a perception of you, and that's not necessarily true. And especially since Dr. Luana mentioned like people who love me, and it's like the ones who love me actually know that too. That you know, I am available, I am accessible, you know, and that I'm not always having a good day. So, you know, check on us.
And Jasmine's such a jewel. I'm still forever grateful for the day you delivered some food to me because I'm an introvert and I will stay in the house for weeks on end. I will not come outside. And she was at it, and I have mostly vegetarian diet, and she brought me some canned fruits and some avocados, and it was just amazing. So I'm grateful for that, and I'm gonna do better at coming out of my shell, and since we're single ladies and in these streets sometimes. Go ahead and get cousin Cassandra's spot. What you got, cousin? What's your wisdom?
When COVID hit, I was the first week I slept all week because I was just tired. Like you've been going and going and going for years, and I didn't talk to many people. Like I just needed time. And then like in a couple weeks, I was like, oh, this is getting real. Like let me figure out what to do next. But I think if anything, this was a really good opportunity to do more introspection. It was a good opportunity to be still. Um, it was a good opportunity to basically say, okay, God, is this what I'm supposed to do? you know, and with everything that has been happening, you know, the answers are right in front of you. You know, and so it's okay to not to be okay. And so when people are like, oh, how are you? Are you okay? And it's just like, you know what, it's one day at a time. You know, I lit some sage for us in the beginning. Like, it's just every day, it's just, you just got to take it as it comes. And I used to be such a planner, and I used to get mad if I didn't accomplish the things that I set out to accomplish that day. And now I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do A, B, C, D, and E. And then after this, I'm going to drink tequila, you know, and I'm going to be okay with it. And, you know, people just, you know, it doesn't mean that I don't care about you. It means that I care about me first in order to help you. And so, you know, the takeaway is just like, you have to take care of yourself, and it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. And with all the comments, I thank you ladies for taking this time out to share your stories. I have been inspired by all of you, watching you. It's been an honor to know you personally on some level. I've connected with all of you, and your stories have stuck with me. And it's just been exciting to learn about you. So I'm glad that we could do this webinar and share information. And for all those that are wanting to be entrepreneurs, either you're gonna get in the pool or you're not gonna get in the pool. Just, you can't go swimming with the water just up to your calves. Like, you gotta jump in. But one thing I've had to learn is that you come to find that there's actually a lot of people rooting for you when you step out. You know, and sometimes we're so fixated on the negative aspects of entrepreneurship that we don't realize there are people supporting us. And that to not be pressured during this pandemic, I think for like weeks, like when all my meetings got canceled and everything just stopped, I subconsciously had this thought that I had to come out of this with all this stuff. So I was like working around the clock, like literally 7 days a week, 11 hours a day, like, you know, or actually like 23, more like that. But it was weird because I had put this pressure on myself to just hurry up and fix stuff and all the things I needed to tend to with my businesses, because I make my money doing consulting and revamping that, and in the magazine, and just trying to be everything. And one day my body was like, no. And I physically couldn't even get out the bed. I tried to get up one morning and my body had given out, and I didn't put my feet on the floor until 6 o'clock that evening. And that was a wake up call for me. So, you know, you definitely have to find balance. I hope you guys have kind of learned something from listening to all of us, and even, you know, that we can encourage each other through these entrepreneurial journeys, because we do have to take time to smell the flowers and enjoy each other, you know. And the last thing a story I always share is when my mother passed. I remember the day that she died, I flew in and I went into my parents' bedroom and I saw her purse sitting on the bed. And that's the one thing that usually as women we keep with us. Like, our purse is usually somewhere close by. And it just dawned on me, like, everything that she was working for, everything that she did, just looking at her purse reminded me, you can't take it with you. You can't. I mean, like, her wallet was right there. You know, we're gonna have our wallet, you know, but it was like, you can't take it. So take the time to create memories and moments, you know. And so I've learned to stop, you know, every project that she had on her desk was still sitting there. And guess what? We picked it up and we finished it. And so we can't let our work consume us so much to where we forget to live, you know. So that is a bit of a struggle, but I'm grateful for you guys. I'm glad you've endured here in America's finest city, this beautiful place.
Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. Thank you. And I feel like we might have to do this again with some follow-ups. There's just, you know, so many questions, and I've gotten personal feedback, but I definitely appreciate you guys. So we thank you guys for tuning in. If you have questions that you feel like we didn't get to, please feel free to, you know, put them on social media. You can send the questions to one of their email addresses or contacts. You can inbox me at the magazine's Facebook page, Black Young Magazine. But we appreciate you guys. We hope you have a safe evening, and thank you so much. And this is recorded, so we will make it available to everybody. And it's also on Facebook. So thank you, ladies.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. This is great.
Awesome. And have some wine. I got my Altipiano bottle.
Are you going to drink the Magnum?
Is that what? This
That's
is a
Magnum bottle. That's supposed to be open and drunk with all of us. I'll bring you.
Save that one.
Yeah,
I am not judging you.
kind of.
Get her to save it, Jasmine.
That alcohol content, Denise makes ripple. So I'm gonna tell you right now, that wine will have you on your ass.
Well, I'm gonna admit that I do have smaller bottles because she gifted me some bottles, and I unknowingly finished a bottle by myself. I took it to have with some friends, and so it was really good. And I was just like, "Hey, have a glass." And I looked up, and the bottle was empty, and it was good. So support Denise and Cassandra.
Well, I'm not going to have wine. My wife and business partner has been over here making dinner, so I'm going to go.
Go eat, girl. Go eat.
Hello, everybody.
Hey,
My parents have to tap in on every Zoom call.
I love it. Hey there. I'm so glad you jumped in. Bye. Awesome. Well, y'all enjoy your night, and I will check in with everybody soon. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
All right. Good night. Bye.
Bye.